Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has rejected the resignation of his foreign minister. Javad Zarif announced his decision to quit on Instagram. Although no specific reason was given, some speculate it's because he was left out of face-to-face meetings between Rouhani and Syria's Bashar al-Assad. While he's staying in his position for now, the fracture in Iran's government comes at a time when the country faces crippling economic sanctions and a dwindling nuclear deal in which Zarif has been Iran's key negotiator. Well, trying to shed some light on what's happening in Tehran is Ali Fathollah-Nejad, a visiting fellow at the Brookings Doha Center. Ali, good to have you here on the Newsmakers. So let's try and unpack this, right? So Zarif resigns and then it's not accepted and he's staying for now. Why did he resign?
I can imagine there's been a lot of pressure on Zarif since the US withdrew from the Iran nuclear agreement in May of last year. And so the Iranian hardliners, who are also not very sympathetic to the JCPOA in the first place, were very much attacking the Iranian foreign minister, although he himself, during the nuclear negotiations, was basically following the directives of the supreme leader, who is also part of the Heartland faction. So there was there was a lot of pressure put on Zarif, and it seems that he had tried to resign a few times before this incident. Now, this time around, it was made public. And, when it comes to Iranian foreign policy, he is not the main guy.
Right. But was there deliberate freezing out when you look at the symbolism of meeting Assad and you have Rouhani and Qasem Soleimani, I think? So it's to prove that you're not the big fish here. The adults are dealing with the issue.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, Iran's policy in the region is directed by the IRGC and the Quds Force commander Soleimani and the supreme leader. And so the foreign ministry is not really, in charge of Iran's regional policy. So this is why I don't think that this particular meeting has been the prime reason for his resignation.
Right. So why do you think the president said, no, please stay?
Because it's a huge blow to Rouhani himself, because Rouhani and Zarif were the ones who were campaigning for the JCPOA, who were promising the Iranian people a lot in terms of dividends coming from the JCPOA. So for him and his administration, it's a huge blow that, the most famous, character has now resigned.
So you have Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, saying, Zarif is gone, good riddance, right, on Twitter. So for him, it's a monolith. Right? The government is the government, it's one thing. You're saying that Rouhani and Zarif were kind of, in the reformist camp, and you have the supreme leader and the Revolutionary Guards Corps in the more hardline camp. But the way Iran is still seen from the outside, from the Saudis, the Israelis, and even the Americans under Trump, is that it's just a monolith. Is that to the detriment of any decent relations between any of these nations?
Well, I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So what we have with the Iranian elite, you have a lot of, you have a factional infighting between the more moderate elements. I wouldn't call Zarif or Rouhani necessarily reformists, but the more moderate wing of the establishment vis-a-vis the more hardline wing. And so in day-to-day politics, they engage in some kind of factional infighting. But on the other hand, at the end of the day, they do, they do represent one single system, and this is why they, they're for the survival of the Islamic Republic as a system. So they have a lot of commonalities, and probably, in Europe, those factional differences were overblown. And in some of those countries who are opposed to Iran that you have mentioned, the differences are ignored.
Right. If I had to ask you if the Iranian people love and respect their foreign minister, would the answer be, well, it depends which Iranian people you're talking about?
Yes, I think so. I mean, in relative terms, of course, Zarif has been quite popular, but his popularity rate has been reduced over the last year because of the lack of the economic dividends. But it's really hard I mean, there are also a lot of people who do suggest that he has done a great job on the diplomatic scene, but who were unhappy with some of his statements, for example, defending human rights violations in Iran, or, saying that Iran is a democracy or something.
Right. So a few years ago, a lot of hope, that the United States and Iran had turned over a new leaf. With the Iran nuclear deal, you had Obama and Rouhani and Zarif and so on. And yeah, they were trying to disentangle 40 years of enmity, right? Trump administration. Trump sides with the Saudis in the Cold War with the Iranians. The hardliners seem to have the momentum now within Iran. Place all of these events, the resignation and staying and so on, in the context of where we are in the geopolitics in the region now. Is there going to be, are the fault lines going to be deeper and wider now?
Well, I think what has happened with Zarif's resignation and his resignation from the resignation has more to do with the domestic politics in Iran and less to do with the geopolitical situation, although they're quite interrelated. The fact of the matter is that Iran finds itself in a very difficult position. It has what I call a triple crisis, a socioeconomic crisis with high levels of poverty, with high levels of unemployment, and a political crisis where there is a political stalemate, where even the moderate wing of the regime is basically very much questioned by important sections of the population, and an ecological. So Iran has a lot of crises to deal with, and those crises, the economic one specifically, have been exacerbated by US sanctions. So because of that, I mean, there is no one politician or no really, representatives from the Iranian government who are able to address all of those questions. And maybe what we are seeing now in Tehran, and also what Zarif is doing, is a kind of, it's a sideshow, basically. So it's a sideshow that is not really is somehow reflecting the power struggles, but it's not reflecting the real issues that the country has to face with.
He's going to go, right? It's an inevitability.
Well, I mean, for now he's still there. I mean, he resigned from these resignations, so he was showing up today, for example, when the Iranian Prime Minister was traveling to Tehran. And I think, as I said at the very beginning, the Supreme Leader has been, in support of what Zarif has been, of course, doing and giving him directives during the nuclear negotiations. I think Zarif has been, for Iranian foreign policy, including the IRGC, an amazing, character, because he was able, like none other, in a very charismatic way, to depict Iranian foreign policy in quite a rosy way to Western audiences who bought it from them. So otherwise, without this charismatic, foreign minister, it's really hard to sell what Iran does in Syria and elsewhere in a positive light.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, because something that was intriguing for me to witness, I was in the United States when he visited the US a few years ago, at the time when he was talking to John Kerry and Obama and so on, and they were crafting the deal. It was fascinating, as though a lot of people that I knew personally who were very anti-Iranian government or regime, as they called it, they hated the system, they hated the supreme leader. When Zarif came, they treated him like a celebrity. They took selfies with him and they loved him, and he made them feel proud of being Iranian. Tell me what's behind that. Absolutely.
This is what I also been observing, actually. And I think the reason is that, so a lot of Iranians have been tired of the demonization of Iran after the revolution. All of a sudden, there is this very charismatic, very educated foreign minister who was educated in the United States, who is very much respected among Western diplomats, who could present a very, nice face of Iran. And Iran got back onto the international stage after the JCPOA. So there was some sense of pride felt by many Iranians. And the Iranian administration in general, and Zarif in particular, knew also to play the nationalist card. So to appeal to Iranians' national sentiment in using not explicitly but more implicitly the fact that Iran is the one good actor against Sunni Arabs who are engaging in some kind of terrorist activities in the region. So all of this have been the reasons why a lot of people have been cheering him. But on the other hand, there's been also a lot of frustration among some of those Iranians who were cheering him when he was more or less apologetic when it came to the political system in Iran, to human rights situation in Iran.
Ali Fathollah-Nejad, it's been great having you on the Newsmakers. Hope you join us again.